Hello everyone and welcome to another part of Devlog. This episode is going to be a little different. I haven't added any new mechanics or content to the game. Instead, I want to talk about the engine upgrade I made. That's right, the game is now running on Unity 6, and there's a really good reason for that decision. If you remember the very first video I made in the series, it was about the lobby system. It worked pretty well and I even uploaded it to GitHub. But there was a major issue with that system I didn't talk about at the time, mainly because there was no solution. You see, I'm developing this game with zero budget and no financial expectations. So renting a server was off the table from the very beginning. That's why I went with a host client setup. It worked fine, but there was one big problem. Say the party is an elimination game, last place standing wins. And in a host client framework, if the host leaves, everything disconnects because the host carries the entire backend. There wasn't a reliable way to do host migration either. So I just kept working, and I hoped I'd figure something out eventually. And I did, thanks to Unity 6. Switching to Unity 6 was actually really easy. That part didn't require any extra effort. But Unity 6 itself doesn't solve the problem directly. The real game changer is the new multiplayer package it comes with, multiplayer services. Switching to that package was the main time-consuming part, because I had to make everything related to the lobby system. But it was well worth the effort. Previously, Unity Multiplayer relied on 3 separate packages: Lobby, Multiplayer, and Relay. As you can see, those still exist, and they still work. But now there is a new package called the Multiplayer Service that combines all these 3 into one. This makes developing a multiplayer game much easier for several reasons. First, you don't need to manually set up a relay, create a lobby, or send heartbeats to keep it alive. The new system handles all of that automatically. On screen now, you can see 2 separate classes I used to use. Their only job was to let player connect and do basic lobby actions like joining, leaving, and setting themselves ready. As you can see, they both are pretty long. And now, here's the new 6 version. This one class does everything those 2 used to do, and most of the lines here are just logging added while making the switch. It's kinda insane how simple it is. Honestly, if you ever dreamed of making a multiplayer game but felt overwhelmed, I think now is a great time to try it out. That said, the package is still pretty new, so there aren't many resources or tutorials yet. It can be a bit tricky to get into. I am still learning it myself, and it definitely wasn't easy to get started. But once you understand the basics, it's way smoother to work with than previous packages. Let me highlight some of the key differences and features that make this system better. First off, there are no more lobbies. They are called sessions now. They do everything a lobby did, but require less setup. You can call built-in methods like join and leave, and all the background work is handled for you. You don't need to start a host manually. You don't need to set up a relay or send heartbeats. It just works. The old lobby system was also only for matchmaking, so you'd discard it once the actual game started. But sessions handle both matchmaking and gameplay. As the name suggests, it's more like managing the entire game session from start to finish. Now, the biggest feature, and the main reason I switch, is something called distributed authority. When creating a session, you can choose from a few networking options. With relay network is basically the old method that used the relay to get around firewalls. I am not really sure what the other 2 do yet, but the one I am using is with distributed authority network. This setup means there is no host. Instead, the network ownership is shared equally among all players. If a new player joins, they get a share of the authority. If someone leaves, the system automatically redistributes it. Oh, that was hard to pronounce. So if a player leaves, nothing breaks. The game keeps going. The best part is, you don't need to write a single line of code for late joining or leaving cases. And that completely solves the main problem I mentioned earlier. Now, there is a downside too. Because all players have some network authority, it's harder to prevent cheating. If you have a budget, a dedicated server is still the safest option. But since this game isn't commercial or competitive, cheating isn't something I am worried about. There is one more big change with the new system, which is how RPCs work. In the old system, You had client RPC for calling functions on clients, and server RPC for calling functions on the server. That system still exists if you want to use it, but now there is just RPC. You can choose exactly who to send it to, like only the owner, everyone exec server, and so on. Since there's no longer a server or host, I replaced all my server RPCs with RPC targeting authority and client RPCs with RPC targeting everyone. The flexibility here is really cool, and I am sure there are a lot of new ways to structure your game logic with it. Personally, I already had most of my backend set up, so I just adapt the old RPCs and move on. Besides a new multiplayer services package, Unity 6 has a couple of other features that make multiplayer development easier. There is a multiplayer center, which helps you get started by guiding you through the setup and offering example scenes. And there's a network visualization tool that shows bandwidth usage and network ownership. Netcode for game objects is still required, by the way, and the visualization tool is especially neat if you want to see how distributed authority shares object ownership. Sadly, I can't show it in action because I don't use network objects. I don't need real-time synchronization, so I just use client RPCs for syncing. But I can show you another neat feature added with Unity 6, which is called multiplayer sessions. 1 or 2 episodes ago, I've talked about how iteration speed is the main challenge of multiplayer development. It can take a lot of time to try out new feature because you need to build your client and set up at least 2 players each time. And I even bought an asset that helps me see the console messages in client. Now, that feature is built in Unity itself. The new multiplayer play mode allows you to launch up to 4 players at the same time, without needing to build the game and creating a client. So you can test your game a lot faster while still being able to see the console hierarchy and the scene itself. But the asset I bought is still useful since it allows me to add custom commands, and it's really helpful for manipulating the dice during the game. But anyway, let me demonstrate you how multiplayer play mode works and how this new system fixed my issue with the host leaving the game. As you can see, player 1 is the current lobby owner, which is a different thing from being the host. I'm gonna start the game. By the way, you can see the 4 clients I opened using multiplayer play mode. Ignore these debug messages. I put them myself for testing. You can use this layout button here to add hierarchy, inspector, scene, and other stuff. Now, I'm gonna disconnect the lobby owner, which is this player, and let's see what happens. Let's pick the quest first, just in case. And as you saw, nothing happened. I can still keep playing the game. That's because the network connection is still there and the session is still going. Let's add the inspector here too. And as you can see, the connection is still going despite the lobby owner leaving the game. And I can still keep playing the game. And that's it for this Devlog. I hope you found this one informative. In the next one, I'll return the old concept and I'll be back with new features and content, mainly the skill system I promised in the previous one. Thanks for watching and take care.